we like to start out our episode discussions with a little bit of a recap. And what we like to do is then take that recap and pull it out as its own separate video. So if you're watching just the recap, there is a link below to see our full discussion on the episode. And for you to let us know what you thought about the episode, you can click that link. But this was Worlds Beyond Number, episode 22, Bring Them to Me. And this episode essentially opens up with the party basically trying to do like their final check the boxes before they head off to ideally Tomo. If you remember, or Toma. Toma,
yeah.
Toma, thank you. They know that they have to get to this witches band meeting in a few days, and but they have a couple of things they need to take care of first. One, most notably, is they need to go speak with Steel. Steel the night before, when everything was kind of going wild with the investigation in Haverward. Steel basically had said like, hey, don't leave yet. At least give me some time to have a conversation. So the party decides to head to go see Steel, but before they do that, they stop by Mr. Callum's shop, his little bakery dessert place, and they decide we have all this like random stuff. Like, let's see if he can hold on to it for us. So they ask Mr. Callum, hey, can you hold all of our stuff for us? To which Mr. Callum, being the kind gentleman of a spell that he is, he says, yeah, of course I will. Why not? It's also in this that Ame, who can't quite help herself, asks a question to Mr. Callum and essentially says, it sort of revives the conversation from a few episodes prior and asking, are you a spirit? To which Mr. Callum is a bit thrown by this question. We know that functionally he is a cantrip that is personified, but it's sort of like breaks, not as programming, but he sort of like really has like a crisis of like, what am I? I don't think I'm a spirit. I think I'm Mr. Callum. I think that is what I am. And then Brennan has this amazing section of basically describing to Ame that she is a deep person. And because her mind always goes to deep interactions, deep conversations, understanding how the world works, that she often may find herself in conversations with people who aren't ready to have those conversations, or even for their minds to go there. Essentially, the way he describes it is Ame basically standing in deep water with talking with someone who's in the shallow end. And it was a fun moment because Ame, Erika Ishii was like, this is about my character, right? Not me. All that to say, the party then moves on to Steele's house, and they begin chatting with her out in her basically patio garden area. And Aabria's character Suvi wants to know about if Silver is okay, to which Steele isn't sure about, but asks. The conversation then moves on to talking about Fort Kieran, and more specifically the nature of the attack on Fort Kieran. In this, Steele reveals that essentially Yoren was present at the attack on Fort Kieran, and that the description of wild beasts attacking Fort Kieran, it was not actually beasts, it was shapeshifters, including Yoren, who had attacked Fort Kieran. They don't know why, they don't know what the grand scheme of it was, but that presumably there was some strategic reason for attacking it that's going to lead to something else. There is a weird conversation where Ame, they talk about the scrolls that have like the shapeshifters on it, which Steele mentions is based off of Yoren. And then Ame asks, well, are you the one who added the smell of iron on the scroll? And Will, we're going to have to talk about this later, about what exactly happened in this conversation, because Steele seems thrown by the fact that Ame has detected that and knows that. But then eventually says like, yes, I did that. Very weird. We get confirmation that the spirit form, or excuse me, the beast form is a spirit from the spirit world. And the conversation shifts to essentially Ursulon asking about his sister and asking like, hey, what do you know about my sister? Like, why was she here? What happened? And Steele basically reveals that the reason that, or part of the reason that her sister was captured was because she was continuously searching for mentions of basically Ursulon, that she was consistently looking for information about him, looking for information about his pauldron, and all these different things that linked to him over a great span of years. But more importantly, she stayed in the Citadel for so long that her glamour form didn't quite age like other people did. And so she became suspicious and was eventually captured and placed into the Spirit Art Gallery, the Kasov collection. Yeah. The conversation then moves to Ame's business of needing to leave and go to Toma. And Steele is very insistent that they, one, likely shouldn't leave, but more importantly, wants to know, who's this person that you've been speaking to? Who's this diviner who told you that you'll face sudden doom or certain doom if you don't go? And Ame is very resistant to say who it is. She essentially says it was a diviner in Kambani Court, I think is what it was called.
Yeah.
And Steele basically says, like, how do you know that this person was being honest with you? I mean, even the best diviners are only right 51% of the time. So how do you even know not only that they are right, one, but two, that you could even trust them? And there's this interesting dynamic of Steele being like, hey, I'm right here. Like, you know, you're essentially saying you trust this person more than you trust me. At least give me time to get a second opinion. Yeah. To which the party agrees. She leaves to go to Kambani Court to get more, to get a second opinion on what's going to happen with Ame. And meanwhile, Ame links in with the fox mentally, and the fox is like, what do you want to do? And Ame's like, forget this, we're going. To which the fox is like, okay, I'll take care of a way out then, and scurries off. Where, by the way, Sonder, Steele's husband, is like, hey, you need to go pee-pee, and like lets him out of the house for him to scurry off. And then the party, they're like, okay, I guess we're doing this, and they decide to go back to Mr. Callum's to pick up their things. Do you want to take it from there?
Yeah. Yes, sir. So they head back to Mr. Callum's to get their things, and Ame, once again, with her telepathic connection, checks on where the fox is, and she can see that he is kind of slinking around where the traveling doors are in Zhao Court. And he tells her, come this way, like, I'll be done soon. So they get on a Galathcopter to go to Zhao Court. But there's a new procedure in place. Suvi must announce who she is and what her business is before it'll take her anywhere. So she says she has an appointment at the Kasov collection. Excuse me. So Brennan says, all right, I'm going to need you to give me a deception check. And he kind of lets her know the stakes right off the bat. He says that you have to get a 15 to avoid dire catastrophes. You have to get a 20 to avoid disaster, and a 25 to succeed. So we find out that Suvi only has a +2 to her deception, and she'll have a +1 from a guidance roll. She gets a 7. So the Galathcopter takes off and begins to head to Zhao Court. And as they're flying, she can see that, as they're flying, she gets a sending spell from Steele that says, hey, I'm finishing up at the Kambani Court now. Let's meet at your place at the Tower of the Glove. And Suvi's like, yeah, change of plans. Ame said she needs to leave right now, so we're heading to Zhao Court. And Steele gets real serious real quick, and she's like, do not leave. That is an order. Remain at Zhao Court. I'll meet you there. So Ame and Ursulon, they obviously can't hear Steele because it's a sending spell, but they can pick up that something has just happened with Suvi. So Suvi tells them what's up, and they're like, we got to stay there until Steele can come talk to us. So they land there, and as they do, they can see that there's already a few skyships at Zhao Court, but now there are 2 more coming. And there's lots of soldiers around the traveling doors, like we spoke of, and Ursulon feels like the hairs on the back of his neck stand up, like he did, I think it was maybe 1 or 2 episodes ago when he kind of felt danger. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Ame can see the soldiers are kind of closing in on these gateways, and she's like, this is my chance. I gotta go. So she closes her eyes one more time to check on the fox, and she can see that he's somewhere dark and is kind of straining with all of his might to like push something. And he says to her, go to Gossamer Plaza. So Ame just starts to go, but Suvi grabs her. And we have a contested athletic check that Ame wins. And I believe Suvi makes a perception check. And when she grabs Ame in this way to like control her movement, she becomes just like, there's an awareness of like the magical power in Ame that she feels that like Ame could choose to punish me for this action 100 years from now. And on Ame's side of this interaction, she just kind of has this moment when Suvi grabs her and is trying to control her, that she like remembers all of the kindnesses she's ever done for Suvi throughout their entire life. And I think Brennan describes it as like she can feel those in the weight of her hand like a sword. Um, and they look at each other, and like something just flashes across Ame's eyes that is like far older and more powerful than she is, but it's like just for a moment and then it dissipates. And both of them are like terrified, but Ame, having won the athletics check, breaks away from her and starts running away. Ursulon takes off after her. So we're rolling initiative from this point to keep everything in order. And Ame and Ursulon both get a 20. Suvi gets a 10. So this next section is basically a lot of rolling, where Brennan has both Ame and Ursulon. Well, first he asks them, are you trying to be stealthy or are you going for like speed? So Ame is trying to be stealthy and Ursulon is just going for speed, which is going to translate into a deception check. Like, can he blend in without trying to be actually stealthy? So in addition to those rolls that they're making for stealth and deception, he's implementing a luck factor where he has them choose on a D4 one of the numbers, and like that will be their lucky number. And as this scene kind of goes on, he will eventually have them pick unlucky numbers of those four as well. So what happens here is they both start rolling, and both of them roll well. So both both Ursulon and Ame are able to like successfully make their way, but they do split up since they're going different ways about it. So they're doing that, and then we get to Suvi in the initiative order, and she is like kind of having a moment. Nothing's going to plan as always. Her two companions, they don't listen to orders. They don't respect her enough to, know the impact of their decisions on her. And even though she told them they need to stay here and wait for Steel, once again, they've gone off and done their own thing. So she just looks to a nearby soldier and says, hey, bring those two back to me. And she rolls a 21 persuasion. So basically these soldiers go after Ursulon and Ame at this point. We continue to make rolls to see if they can avoid these soldiers, again with the luck checks. They are successful in avoiding them so far. Ame checks back in with the fox and he's like, hey, like we've got one shot at this. Like, are we going or not? And Ame's like, well, Suvi and Ursulon aren't with me. But she says, you know what? Go. So the fox causes this huge distraction by basically knocking over these barrels full of magical sand. And the area that they are in the Gossamer Plaza is this area where a bunch of dimension door spells are going out to transport people across the Citadel. So these barrels tumble over, causing this huge commotion, and one of the guards like tries to stop one of the barrels with his staff, but the staff like breaks through it, and in that kind of commotion has like ignited this magical sand. So basically this becomes a huge bonfire as one barrel sets off the next, and the first thing that happens is four wizards just get teleported who knows where due to this like dimensional door teleportation magic. And it's just a snowball effect where the more sand that gets into this fire makes the magic more potent and more chaotic, and everything is just going haywire. So basically Ame's got a decision. She can jump into this like massive bonfire of a dimension door, but she doesn't know where it's going to take her. The fox's logic was essentially, hey, people use these dimension doors to travel, but it's a short distance. So if we amp it up with magical sand, we can go further. And so Ame decides she's going to go for it. So she kind of just jumps into this fire. And Brennan basically says, all right, I need an insight check and a wisdom saving throw. and she gets a 15 and an 8 respectively. We then cut to Ursulon, who again is taking a different path to get here, but he can see this bonfire happening now in the distance. So he makes a few more checks and is successful and is basically making a sprint for this bonfire. We cut back to Suvi. She sees the fire as well, and she describes just like a single tear rolling down her cheek, saying that they've never cared about the cost of what they do. They don't notice the things going on around them, like something terrible is happening in the world right now, and they can only think about themselves. She says, I've been pushed twice in 2 days, and of course, there's an inferno now because that's what always happens when they go and do their thing. So she just sits there. Doesn't try to go or anything. She just sits there and waits. We then cut back to Ursulon. And as he's sprinting through Gossamer Plaza, all of these butterflies that are in this area start like collecting on him. And he can feel his power being drained. And so he realizes that, spirits running rampant through here is exactly the type of magic this place has been designed to prevent. So we get one final of these luck checks from Ursulon, and he hits his lucky number for the first time in this entire sequence. So he's able to like successfully get away from this, and he says that in defiance, he drops his glamour and he's just in his full spirit form as he's barreling towards this bonfire. He gets there. Ame is nowhere to be seen because she has already gone into it, and so he basically has to decide what to do. He too just jumps straight in. So he too has to make that insight check in the wisdom saving throw, but he does, we're told, get a D10 inspiration on one of those. So he gets a 20 for the wisdom and a 31 for the insight check. So he jumps in. He doesn't know what's going to happen, but he knows one thing that he's always known is that he cannot remain where he's been. So he goes in. At first he's worried, but then that washes away because he realized what this bonfire, what this wild magic is magic, and he is magic. So in a way, like this is home to him. And he can feel Wavebreaker at his hip, like kind of start to hum and sing. And he realizes there's like something to dispel in the way that Wavebreaker can dispel things. There's like a tether. So he holds it up and cuts this tether that is attempting to do something. And on this 31, he realizes that the fire was kept small in order to control it, and wizards often keep things small to control them. So here, he's home. On that 31, he can basically go wherever he wants. Like he's in command of this teleportation spell in a way. So he's moving with confidence, and the fire starts to turn into like the trees, the forest around Grandmother Wren's house. And as he's like kind of walking through this, he realizes that he's like walking on a road. And so he turns around because he hears something. And on this kind of metaphorical road, if you will, we'll talk more about this in our discussion, I'm sure. But there's a shadow, and it's the shadow of the stranger, the one from the very first episode. And he's like, Brother Ursulon, I can't believe that I haven't had my eye on you. And just being very ominous. And so Ursulon is kind of like presented with this choice in this moment. Before him is seemingly Ame, like down the path toward Ren's. Behind him is this shadow of a stranger. But then he notices amongst them of this fiery forest, at the bottom of one of the trees is a burrow. And it's a burrow that he hasn't seen in a long time, but it's one that he's seen before. And so Brennan asks him, Ursulon, what are you going to do? Which way are you going to go? And that's where the episode ends. Devious cliffhanger. But once again, that is episode 22 of Worlds Beyond Number. Bring them to me. And if you want to see our full discussion, if you happen to be on our recap video, you will be able to find that in the description below.